So I'm gonna start you off with an easy one, okay? And I mean that sarcastically. What was it like being the only person in the entire world to grow up in a family where both of your parents are members of the Country Music Hall of Fame?
Well, I guess it's kind of a hard question for me to answer, only because, to me, when I was growing up, they were mom and dad. I didn't really realize until I was much older how different our life was from anyone else. I just thought that what they did was normal, and what we did was normal. The Opry was someplace they worked, and when we'd go to fairs and shows, that was like their office. So I think I was probably in my 20s before it really hit me that places that we traveled and people that we met were incredibly talented people, and that was a privilege. That it was a really cool thing happening in my life. But mom and dad of course had rules for me and my sisters and brothers just like anyone else. So we thought at the time, being kids, that we were just growing up in a normal way. We had no idea that it was anything any different.
So you mentioned it yourself. You've met people all over the world. Could you talk to me about maybe what is one of the weirdest experiences you've ever had with a fan?
Oh, wow, gosh.
Can you think of any example that stands out to you?
I can't necessarily think of anything specific as far as like an actual person in a specific story, but I can say in general that it always is strange to me to meet people that have very intimate stories about my family that I've never met before, because they've either sat down and had meals or knew them when they were traveling to certain places for a certain amount of time, and they have stories to share with me, because most of my friends they don't have that happen to them. I can be at some random person's home that I just met within the last week, and they pull out photo albums that have concert pictures and places where they've been with my parents. It just seems very odd to see my family in some stranger's photo album. It's just things like that have happened. It is very strange that people seem to know my parents and very well, when it seems odd that a stranger would know them. That's because of them having been put in the media and meeting people all over the world as they've traveled and done things like that.
Wow. So in addition to the fans you've met, you've probably met your fair share of other country music stars as well. Out of your opinion, who has one of the most interesting personalities out of country music stars that you've met?
Well, there are so many people, but I guess probably one of my favorite people that I've ever met in my lifetime is Loretta Lynn. She was such a great friend of my mom's, and every time I see her, she's so excited to talk to me and tell me more things about my mom, and I love that, because especially now that my mom's been gone for so long, it makes me so happy and feel so good when she can tell me things about my mom. But what I find funny is that when you think about your mom, most people think about that person that raised them, that person that gave them, love, but discipline. You think of them in a different way. And Loretta, of course, she's got such a funny personality. She has a great sense of humor. I don't know that everybody knows how funny she is. And my mom was the same way. And so she can't wait to tell me all these funny things that my mom and her did when I was a baby. Things, places where they would sneak away from the guys, so to speak, and just go have a girls' night or a girls' day somewhere and spend time together. And it's just really nice to hear stories about how my mom had a childlike heart, and she had a lot of fun, and she did have friends like Loretta who would allow her to be herself and not have to worry about what somebody was thinking about her or saying about her. She could just be a normal person and enjoy herself, and have fun. And Loretta is just one of the most amazing people I've ever met, because she's not only an icon and just incredibly talented, but she's such a down-to-earth person and so kind-hearted, and really has a fantastic sense of humor. She's funny as she could possibly be. She's really great.
Wow. I'll let you take a guess here. Can you take a wild guess at who I'm named after?
Well, Waylon Jennings, perhaps?
You would be correct. Have you ever met Waylon Jennings?
Oh, yes. Many times I did. In fact, Waylon was such a great friend to my dad and my mom. He was a wonderful, kind guy. In fact, my husband ended up working for his son, Shooter. He played steel guitar for Shooter for a while.
Really?
Yeah, and Shooter's a great guy. He and his wife are both really good people and extremely talented. But Waylon, of course, like my dad, there were times where my dad, when he had really hard times, I mean, Waylon was one of those people that was there for him. You know, probably Waylon and Johnny were two of my dad's closest friends. He knew that without a doubt, no matter what he was going through, that the two of them would be there for him. And nothing truer could be said about someone. I mean, Waylon was a genuinely good-hearted and wonderful person. He was awesome friend to my dad, especially.
I think he said in one of his songs that if we could all sound like we wanted to, we'd all sound like Georgette Jones.
Yes, he did. He loved the way that my dad sang, and he was incredibly generous with compliments when it came to my dad singing. But you know, my dad, he just loved Waylon to death. Like, he really adored him. In fact, Waylon, when he had heart surgery, years later, my dad had heart surgery, and so when my dad knew he was going to have heart surgery, Waylon actually came to talk to him just to tell him what to expect, and of course found a way to make it funny, to try to make it lighthearted and make it not seem so bad for my dad. He kind of took some of the fear and worry about it away, you know. So he was there for a times, and even when nobody else was there for my dad. Waylon was he was an excellent friend to my dad.
Country music has changed a lot. In your opinion, who do you think has the best male and female country music voices today?
I have so many favorites. I think of the younger and newer generation, as far as male singers are concerned, I'd have to say like Mo Pitney or Cody Johnson. I think that they're amazing. Easton Corbin has a very amazing, like a country sound, even though he is still newer than some of the other artists, but he's stayed true to his music, you know, fiddle and steel and everything that he makes, rather than kind of going along with the flow of doing more modernized contemporary country, which of course there's some great country music out there, modern and contemporary, but I'm a super fan of traditional music myself. So, you know, not to sound biased, but I do love the older country music a bit more than some of the newer stuff. But there's some incredibly talented people out there. Some of the newer people, female-wise, I love Ashley McBryde. I think she's an incredible writer, and she's a very talented singer. I love her music because it's so relatable. Ashley Monroe, I love her voice too. I think she's great. Leanne Womack and of course Loretta and people like that are just incredible influences for me in music. I think they're so talented and have great voices and awesome writers.
What was the first song you ever recorded in the studio?
I would have been 10 years old, and Bobby Braddock wrote a song for my dad and myself called Daddy Come Home. My dad asked if I wanted to record it, and I was super excited to get a chance to, you know, not only record a song, but to record a song that was very emotionally connected to me and to my dad. I got to record the song with my dad when I was 10. And then when I was 11, my dad did an HBO special where he had several artists, friends of his, come and do this HBO special, and he invited me to come sing that song with him on TV, and it was the first time I ever sang on TV. And if you look at the clip on YouTube, it's really funny because I was absolutely terrified, to the point where, I mean, I was just staring at the camera like a deer in the headlights. And he was being so sweet, trying to kiss me on the forehead and hold my hand to try to make me not so nervous about it. But I mean, I can actually remember at that point being so freaked out and scared when I found out I was going to be on TV, like wanting to back out at the last minute, like, no, maybe I shouldn't do it. But it's funny if you ever watch the clip on YouTube, because you can tell how scared I was.
Did it take you long to get over the nerves of performing on stage? Or I'm sure it was almost secondhand growing up in a family where that was normal.
Well, I started singing on stage when I was only 3, and I didn't really develop a fear until I was probably in that range of around 10 to 12. But I think at that point, I was old enough then, I realized that people were talking about me, and like they were, you know, comparing me, and, you know, is she going to sound like her mom? You know, is she going to phrase like her dad? Is she this? Is she that? And I became very aware suddenly that it wasn't just me singing and having fun with my parents anymore. It seemed like it, you know, was more serious than that, and I was worried about disappointing someone or not being good enough, or those comparisons were scary as a kid. And I ended up, in fact, becoming a registered nurse for 17 years, and even though I've always loved music, I stayed away from music for most of my life until I was about 38, and I ended up starting to finally sing full-time about 11 years ago. You know, I think it took some maturity and growing older to realize that it was okay to be compared, that was human nature, but that could be Elvis, and not everyone's going to like you. It's okay. I had to kind of get older and realize that those comparisons were normal, and that I would be okay with it, that hopefully someone out there would enjoy my music, and those who didn't, that was okay too. But when I was younger, I guess probably around that age, it really did hit me hard and made it scary for me.
Besides your parents, who else do you pull inspiration from? Who inspires your music?
Gosh, there's so many. I was born in the 70s, so a lot of the 80s and 90s music inspired me of all different kinds. I listened to some rock music. I listened to country. I listened to a lot of different styles for a little while. So Linda Ronstadt and Bonnie Raitt were some outside kind of sort of country, rock pop, influences that weren't necessarily strict traditional. But people like Leanne Womack, in the 90s, Pam Tillis and Lori Morgan, I loved their music. Patty Loveless, those are people that I really looked up to and loved the songs that they sang and the things that they wrote. And there's the men in the industry back then, like Alan Jackson, Mark Chestnut. There were several people that I thought were incredibly talented that I love. And Vince Gill, for one, is one of my all-time favorites. Mm-hmm. And I guess Merle Haggard, other than my dad, is probably my all-time country music singer. So, male-wise anyway. Mm-hmm. So, but lots of different influences. I guess it just depends on the decade.
What was your proudest achievement?
Well, there's a couple things I'd have to say that were really close, so I'll tell you them both.
Sure.
Being able to sing on the Opry and at the Ryman with my dad, that was, number one, emotional, being able to sing with my dad in such an amazing place to sing, someplace that I know most people, they put on their list of to-dos if they ever want to make it in country music. It was something that everyone dreams about. And to know that my dad and mom stood there in the circle at the Opry together singing those songs, to an audience, it just was kind of surreal to have an opportunity to do that. So that was really very special to me. But I also have to say, as much as I love my parents' music, I do tribute shows in their honor, and it makes me very happy to be able to share their music and experiences with people. But I also have my own music and have tried to be my own artist. And so this last CD that I made is actually the first CD that I've ever had full control of, so to speak. I've been able to pick the songs. I wrote the title track called Skin. That song was very special to me. But also, I got to sing with one of my heroes. I got to sing with Vince Gill. I got to sing with Dale Watson and Dean Miller, who's the son of Roger Miller. They're important people to me that I admire in my life. And those songs are just, I connect so much to that. It was really kind of surreal getting to do a duet with one of my heroes. I mean, Vince Gill by far is one of the most down-to-earth people you'll ever meet, but still in my mind, I'm like anybody else who is a fan and has a hero, musically speaking, so I just was in awe that I had an opportunity to sing with someone that I admire so much. So I'd have to say, singing at the Opry and the Ryman with my dad, and then also being able to have an experience where I felt totally like I had creative control over something that meant a lot to me, and being able to sing with one of my heroes. Those kind of things just don't happen all the time, so it's very special to me.
Do you enjoy writing music?
I do. I really used to write a lot more. These days, I still have ideas that hit me where sometimes I just feel like I've got to sit down and write. But writing is so much different today than what it used to be. There were a lot more opportunities probably 10 to 20 years ago to write with all different kinds of writers. And today, it's become more of a business than an art, I'm afraid. It's gotten to the point where record labels and publishing companies only want their artists to write with certain people. Like you may be a new writer, but you have to write with the artist for them to put it on their album. It's a way that they try to help the artist to write more of their own music, but which is a means of trying to get them more money, which is smart, and I totally understand that. But at the same time, if you don't have an in, if you don't have a network where the artists themselves are people who are already writing with them, it's difficult to be able to write on a level where you might have your songs pitched like you used to. If you found a publishing company that liked what you wrote and believed in you, they would pitch your music to other people, and that's really all you had to do was just get a publishing company to believe in you. And it's just a little bit more political and a little bit more networking kind of today than what it used to be. But I still make music and write music for my own projects. I just don't write for other people like I used to.
Many artists keep a vault of kind of unreleased music set aside for multiple reasons. And sometimes it's years before, those tracks will see the light of day. Do you keep a catalog of unreleased projects?
Oh, I have many. I have a lot of things. Some of the things that I either wrote for other people and then it just either didn't work out, or stuff that I wrote for myself I haven't yet had a chance to record. And we've made demos. Sometimes they're just even work tapes. They're not even full-blown demos. And they're all stored in a computer and a backup so that hopefully I won't ever lose them. But we got a new computer a couple of months ago. My husband and I do some studio work from home. Mm-hmm. And we've gotten a new system. And in doing so, we were backing up, making sure we didn't miss anything before we changed over everything. And it's funny when you get to listen to stuff that you haven't heard in a while. Like, I mean, there were some songs and some pictures and things that we went through that I haven't listened to probably in 10 years. And it's like, oh, I remember that. And I have to remind myself that, that stuff is still there. And it would be fun to put some of those things together and make a new project. So who knows? Maybe that'll happen soon, especially with all this time off we've had here lately from not being able to make live music because of everything going so crazy in the world today. So who knows? There's things we've been trying to work on already for projects while we have this downtime. So that might be a good idea for me to look into some of the stuff that's on the back burner.
So how'd you meet Jamie, and is he related to John Lennon?
He gets asked that a lot, but he says, and usually the way he answers it, as far as he knows, no. But his father, though, is from Ireland. He was born in Kilkenny, and his dad was actually signed to Decca Records in the 60s, Dave, was that right? In the 60s, and so he grew up in a musical family. He started playing steel guitar when he was 9 years old, and his brothers play instruments, like they had a family band. And his brothers actually still make music in England. His dad only in the last couple of years retired from singing, and he's in his 80s. So he grew up much like me in a different way. Mm-hmm. Both of us from musical families, and music is actually what brought us together. I was working as a registered nurse and had not really been making music at all. And I was living in Alabama, and I had an opportunity. A guy that Reggie Mack was his name. He booked my dad shows and stuff for him, and he called me one day out of blue and said that there's a guy in Ireland that wanted to hire me to come sing for a couple of weeks and to sing with some other artists. And I had never done that before. I didn't have my own band, and so I didn't think I'd be able to. But he said, no, we're going to have a house band that will play for all of the artists. And so he talked me into it. I had twin boys, and they were almost 16. And so I thought it would be a great trip. It'd be fun for them to go overseas. They'd never been overseas before. Mm-hmm. And, I grew up being able to travel and see the world with my mom, so I thought it would be an awful lot of fun to do that. So I went to Ireland, and what's kind of funny, we talk about it all the time now, I was there with Leona Williams, Hal Ketchum, Doug Stone, and then for a couple of weeks, Randy Travis, Martina McBride, Connie Smith, and some others were also there for a portion of the tour that we did. And my husband, Jamie, was hired last minute because Bruce Fountain, who was still player for Reba McEntire, was supposed to be in the house band. But last minute, Reba booked like 20-something dates on a tour that he had to come home for. And so 2 days before this tour was to begin, a friend of his who was playing guitar for the band actually called Jamie and said, man, we've got to have somebody fill in. Would you be up to the challenge? And he's like, sure. So he had to learn like 80 songs in a couple of days to get prepared to play for all of us and to tour. And I met him, and he was in the process of getting his work visa to come to Nashville because that was his dream, to play music in Nashville. And it's kind of funny that I was trying to talk to him and tell him where to go and who to meet and things to do, and I just assumed we were going to be friends. And within a couple of weeks of us being there, it developed into more than that. I was excited to be able to go visit him a couple months after I got home, and then a couple months after that he came to visit me, and eventually he stayed here, and we've been together for 11 years.
Wow.
So we got married in 2011, but met in 2009. So it was a fairy tale.
Aww. What's your favorite places to travel to?
Wow, I do love to travel, and if I had to pick a place, I guess, Norway is incredibly beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. It's a place called the Faroe Islands that I'd never even heard of until I was asked to go do a festival there a few years back. And if it were a warm climate over there, I don't think anybody would ever leave. I think everyone would bombard that place and just stay there forever. These gorgeous mountainous peaks peek out of the ocean, and it's just beautiful. It's stunning to look at. But I was born in Florida, and I'm a warm weather person at heart. So even though those countries are absolutely gorgeous to look at, I need some warm weather in my life.
You mentioned that you were a registered nurse. What made you interested in the medical field?
Well, to be honest, when I was about 17, my grandfather, he was like my second father. My grandmother and grandfather took care of me a lot when my parents were traveling and gone when I was growing up, and so they were kind of closer to me than what normal grandparents would be, I suppose. And I adored them, and I moved to Alabama to go to college when I graduated high school because my grandparents were nearby, and I felt like that way I could still be close to family. And my grandfather passed away when I was 17, and for a few weeks, with him being in the hospital before he died, I was very interested in what was happening and what was going on around him, and wishing that there was something that I could do and that I knew more and understood more about what was happening. And a month after he died, my sister gave birth to twins, and I was at the hospital with her through her labor as well. And just being in the hospital setting and seeing so much happening around me, I was very curious, and wanted to learn more. And a couple of my cousins were nurses. They're now nurse practitioners, and they convinced me to take a class just to see if I would like it. I'm like, I don't know if I would, I don't know if the sight of blood would bother me. Like, you're not really sure. I was so young. I graduated high school when I was only 16, and so I was in just general classes at 17 and in college, and they were trying to talk me into it. So I thought, why not? I'll just see, how it goes. I took an introductory to nursing class, and I ended up loving it. And I enjoyed learning about microbiology and anatomy and all of those things I thought that I would really hate when I was younger, but instead I really took to it and enjoyed it, and I liked being able to help people. When I became a nurse, it was really just one of those things. I worked in the emergency room, and I worked in several different areas of the hospital, but I really enjoyed that feeling it was a very rewarding feeling of knowing that you've done something significant to help someone.
Wow, very cool. So I kind of want to flip the script here and talk a little bit about the song you and I recorded. Had you heard the song before I showed it to you?
No, and see, that's one of those things that I love. I have gotten to where a lot of the stuff on the radio, I hate to say it, but I'll channel surf so much to the point where I just get frustrated and listen to what I have on my phone, especially if I'm on long trips. So I don't get to discover new music as much as I used to, and I used to love that. I used to love to hear something new or hear somebody new on the radio. And even though my dad pretty much kept his radio station on one channel, my mom listened to a lot of different kinds of music. She wasn't just someone who listened to only country music, so I have a diversity in the kind of things that I like to listen to. And so when you sent that song and I listened to it, I immediately, of course, I go to my Apple Music and I start, listening to that artist, and I listen to other things and trying to hear stuff. And what a beautiful song! And it was so pretty, and I was excited to get a chance to record something that was different than all the other stuff that I normally record. And you have a great voice, and I was so happy we blended well. I felt like it sounded good. I was excited about it, so it was a lot of fun. I'm glad that you asked me to do that because, like I said, unfortunately, I don't get to discover new music as much as I used to, and I really love it when I do. Thank you for introducing me to that.
No, thank you for doing this, because this whole experience has ultimately been a highlight of my entire life. I have absolutely loved working on this. I like songs that don't necessarily conform to one genre, because I think we took this song that people wouldn't necessarily think, oh, this is a good country ballad. It is, but it isn't. I love cross genre songs like that. When you sing the lyrics, "Hey Brother," who do you think of?
Well, that's the thing. It's this song, so many things when you listen to them, it makes it sound very definitive of this is your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or this is your family member, or brother could mean actually your brother, but it also could mean this person that you relate to, or this person that you have love for. It doesn't necessarily have to be brother in the actual sense. So I kind of like to hear songs and interpret that to whatever situation, may be happening at the moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
It may sound goofy and crazy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be literal.
You connect with your fans in a way that I feel like other artists haven't been able to do by recording songs with them. What made you decide to do it?
Well, we had so much time. Like when all of this stuff happened, when the coronavirus hit the United States, and we were all wondering what was going to happen. And my husband and I both have been out of work since March, and went with much of the rest of the country, and trying to figure out what to do with our time so that we can still be productive and still be able to make music, because it's what we enjoy. It's what we're very passionate about music. So we just started talking, throwing out ideas, and while working on some projects of my own, we just started thinking, well, why don't we just see, if there's anybody else out there who might want to make music? Like, there might be some avenues out there that we haven't even talked about or thought about, because we've never really had this kind of time to really think about doing other kinds of projects. And because we do have a studio in our home, we have a little corner actually in our bedroom where we set up all of our equipment, and so we can do things from home. And we thought, well, that might be something interesting. We might be able to discover some new talent, or get to make some music that we've never made before. And it's been really a lot of fun. I mean, there's been several people who have talked to us about doing projects that we're still waiting to get started on, but it's been a process, because some people don't have access to a studio of their own, like to do their own vocals first, before we can get involved. Mm-hmm. But it's been such a fun thing to do. We've met some people from all over the world, from California and Alabama and New York and all over the place, all over the country, and it's nice to be able to talk to people and see what it is they're doing, what they like, because music is universal. It's a language I think we all speak. So wow. It's been fun.
I want to thank you for the opportunity, and I mean, it's been an honor. It really, really has. And
like I said, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great song, and I had a lot of fun recording it. So I'm glad you're happy with it, because it's definitely something very cool that I enjoyed.
Well, thank you. No, every time I hear a song now, I'm going to think now, is this a song that Georgette and I could sing as a duet? That's going to be...
Well, you let me know if you have another one. I'm ready and happy to do it.
I definitely will.